We all know that the planet Earth is capable of the most impressive, powerful, and outstanding weather phenomena. But there's always more to see and to discover, and some of them are just too strange to handle. From ice flowers on the ocean to gigantic snakes in the sky, here are 15 of the strangest weather occurrences ever. 2007 North American Ice Storm. This was one of the biggest storms to have ever occurred in North America. It affected an outstandingly large area from Rio Grande Valley to New England and southeast Canada, and it lasted a total of 6 days. But once it was over, 2 more waves of nearly the same magnitude hit the area within the same month of January. The natural disaster claimed at least 74 lives throughout 12 states and 3 Canadian provinces. Also, hundreds of thousands of people lost access to electric power. It left the areas affected looking like a war zone. Trees had fallen down, cars and houses completely destroyed. A 5-inch layer of ice was covering absolutely everything, and by the weight of it, a lot of private property got damaged. This is not your ordinary blizzard, but rather an ice precipitation, which means that it isn't snow that's falling from the sky, but rock-hard ice. Chaos was everywhere, and thousands of car accidents occurred during the time as well, caused by both the compromised visibility and also the slippery ice layer that settled in every road. Thunder snow. The 31st of January, Groundhog Day in 2011, North America saw one of the most violent blizzards ever. From the 31st of January until the 2nd of February, an extremely large region was absolutely immersed and paralyzed due to a very intense thunder snow phenomenon. During the first stages of the storm, meteorologists predicted that the event would affect over 100 million people in the US alone, and it turns out they were not wrong. There was extremely heavy snowfall, blowing snow, and mixed precipitations. The winds were so fast, they reached speeds of 60 miles per hour. And with such powerful winds, the storm spread throughout almost the entire continent of North America. Knee-deep snowfall amounts of a whopping 20 to 28 inches were happening mainly in northern and western Illinois, and it occurred in just a 24-hour period. That's a lot of snow, and of course, it made it impossible for cars to circulate, and even ambulances. About 900 cars were abandoned on Lake Shore Drive after the drivers spent hours sitting in their cars or walking around waiting to be rescued. It looked like a white Armageddon. Twin tornadoes. When you think about twins, you probably think about siblings or even the Twin Towers. But did you know that twin tornadoes exist? Well, they do. And as the name suggests, they are double trouble. I mean, if one tornado is scary as it is, imagine the effect of 2 tornadoes side by side. And even though they are incredibly intimidating and impressive, they're actually not as rare as one might think. There are lots of documented cases of multiple tornadoes touching down from the same parent supercell thunderstorm. But what qualifies as a twin tornado? Well, like anything, else, a twin is an identical copy of something, or 2 of the same, if you will. So twin tornadoes have to be exactly as large, as fast, everything has to be very similar, and that's a bit more rare, like the ones that occurred in Omaha in 2014. Both tornadoes were extremely destructive and clearly of identical proportions. I guess that if you see one tornado, you should run, but if you see twin tornadoes, well, then run twice as fast. Antarctica heat. Did you know that the heat waves that we all dread can also reach the far corners of our planet, such as Antarctica? Well, it happened this year. The heat wave started in late spring and has since circumnavigated the entire continent. This is obviously not good news for Antarctica. To put things into perspective, we know that since the 19th century, the planet Earth has warmed by roughly 0.8 degrees Celsius, but it's anticipated now that before the end of the 21st century, the global temperature will have increased by 3 to 5 degrees. And that puts our planet and us in a lot of danger, and Antarctica is no exception. This summer, scientists recorded temperatures of over 20 degrees, the first time in history for the continent. This means that the cold desert that is Antarctica is now becoming humid, which is extremely detrimental to the wildlife there. It also means that the snowbanks are starting to melt, contributing to the high flowing of rivers and the flooding of the lakes. We still know so little about this magnificent and mysterious continent, and yet it's already slipping through our hands and melting away. At this rate, Antarctica is gonna disappear before we ever get a chance to fully understand it. Milky rain. As far as normality goes, rain has always been, well, transparent. I mean, it is water after all. Even acid rain is translucent. So what would you do if one day it started raining, but instead of water, what's now falling from the sky is actually this milky, white, gooey substance? That is the dilemma that the residents of Oregon and Washington had to face in 2015. The rain droplets were even leaving a powdery, chalky trail on every surface. And this happened across a 3-kilometer chunk of land. Nobody had ever seen anything like it, and there certainly was no evident explanation. But when scientists tested the mysterious liquid, they found that it had excessive amounts of sodium. Don't be scared, sodium's simply salt. But how can it rain salt? The explanation was difficult to find, but quite simple actually. The origin of such bizarre rain was in a saline source from a dry lake bed located 772 kilometers away from where the strange event happened. And what happened is that the night before the Milky Rain, the same storm hit that place full of salt, and the winds were strong enough to elevate and carry with it massive amounts of salt debris and dust. Funnel cloud in Alaska. Alaska is no stranger to natural disasters. There are earthquakes, volcanoes, deadly cold, the list goes on. But tornadoes, or anything resembling one, just don't make the list. That is why when a funnel cloud occurred in Anchorage, everyone lost their minds. The skinny, spectral vortex was captured by a man named Warren, who was driving nearby by sheer chance. And as soon as he caught a glimpse of the strange phenomenon, he immediately pulled over and whipped out his iPhone to snap a picture. Needless to say, this made him a sort of weather celebrity in Alaska, as the photograph went viral. Thousands of people were sharing the one and only pic on social media. Warren even got a call from the National Weather Service a few days later to ask him permission to post his photo on their Twitter account. Funnel clouds are harmless. They're basically teeny tiny little baby tornadoes. But they are quite pretty, and for those who are not used to them, it can be the main gossip for a few days. Inversion clouds. So, cloud inversions are amongst the most whimsical and magical weather occurrences that a person can ever see. If you want to see one, strap on your hiking boots and start climbing mountains, because that is where they're most likely to happen, and especially in autumn. And the most fulfilling way of actually experiencing a cloud inversion is if you unzip your camping tent one crisp morning, only to notice that you are now standing on top of a vast ocean of clouds underneath you. Now, that is bound to reset your internal batteries. And part of what makes this phenomenon mysterious and ominous is that it is extremely elusive. In other words, it is virtually impossible to actually predict when they're gonna happen. They form when there is an inversion of temperature, so instead of the temperature gently and steadily falling, the exact opposite happens. The temperature behaves the same way, just the other way around. And that causes clouds to stay at almost the same level as the ground, creating a fairy tale atmosphere that will enchant anyone. 1816, the year without a summer. Now, whether you're the kind of person who prefers winter or even the more mild seasons like autumn and spring, you would agree that if one year summer simply is a no-show, it would be a cause of preoccupation, right? To put it lightly. Well, that is exactly what happened in 1816, the year that would forever go down in history as the year without a summer. That year, there was a worrying increase of weather abnormalities all over the globe, and temperatures mysteriously dropped by 0.4 to 0.7 degrees Celsius. And that summer, Europe reported the coldest temperatures from the year 1766 to the year 2000. Snow. Snow everywhere. Florida is called the Sunshine State for a reason. It is always sunny there. It has the Caribbean weather and sandy paradisiac beaches and coconut trees. So if I put the word snow and the word Florida in the same sentence, I think it would qualify as an oxymoron. But actually, it can and did happen that Florida saw a snowy day. And not just your ordinary snowy day either. And don't get me wrong, snow in the Sunshine State is extremely rare. So much so that it's only happened once in 200 years. But in January 1977, it happened again, and there was snow everywhere. Imagine falling asleep in tropical Florida and waking up to a Christmas movie scene. Needless to say, people were quite scared, and a lot of animals and wildlife suffered quite a bit. That's because Florida's not used to the cold temperatures that make snow possible, and the animals there are not cut out to survive such a thing. But fortunately, the southern state hasn't seen such a heavy snowfall ever since, besides the small ones here and there. Glacier tsunami. So by now, y'all probably know that because of global warming, the glaciers are breaking down and melting. But what happens when a massively huge chunk of ice violently and abruptly drops into the ocean? Well, what happens when you throw yourself into your bathtub when it's filled to the brim? A massive wave. Or, in the case of the glaciers, a colossal tsunami. To this day, a tsunami has never been caused by a chunk of glacier falling into the ocean. But scientists believe that not only is there a possibility of it happening, but that it'll probably happen within the next 12 months. Scary, right? They think it'll probably originate in Alaska, and it will be like no tsunami ever seen or reported in history. No, this will be a mega tsunami. A wave so powerful and vast that the amount of destruction it will create is virtually unimaginable. So much so that the Alaska Department of Natural Resources has written a letter to the government to shed some light on the matter. That way, maybe with the proper resources, it might be able to be prevented. Baltic Sea Thunderstorm. There are few natural phenomena more majestic and humbling as the Baltic Sea thunderstorm. During summer every year, there's a concentration of heavy clouds that accumulate above the gorgeous Nordic Ocean. And particularly during the month of July until August, you will not get away from the formidable storms that occur in the middle of it. The thunder strikes are breathtakingly beautiful, and the storms can last for hours on end. It's become such a famous weather occurrence that they even have ferry boats that'll drive you right into the center of the storm so you can get a better view of it. The Baltic Sea is remarkably smaller than other oceans, but it is a very ancient, deep, and dark one. The atmosphere out there is truly intoxicating. It'll make any visitor feel more free than they have ever felt before. Just the sound of it is mesmerizing, and the spectacular thunder that goes with it only makes it better. If you enjoy cold and rough weather that reminds you of just how powerful this planet really is, then Estonia during summertime should be your next holiday destination. Storm IMOGEN. Not every storm gets to have a name, only the ones that have a very high chance of causing damage. So when you hear in the news that they refer to a certain storm by its name, you know they mean business. Also, for some mysterious reason, they always give female names to the destructive storms. And Storm Imogen was no exception. Imogen hit the UK and Ireland in 2015 and 2016, and it caused the Great Floods that left thousands of people without power. It produced winds of almost 100 miles per hour, something extremely rare in the region. And with winds that fast, it was technically a Category 1 hurricane. It came with exceptionally torrential rains that caused major disruptions in traveling and circulation. The ocean was so violently wild that it seemed like it was gonna swallow the coastline whole. When nature gets so angry, it's always best to stay far away, or else it can take you with her. Lots of homes were destroyed during Storm Imogen, and much of the infrastructure of the affected region had to be replaced. It's raining fish and frogs. The fact that sometimes alive creatures fall from the sky is not something new. Aside from the most classic fish rain, there are many different varieties. There was spider rain over Brazil, tadpoles sometimes rain over Japan, the classic frog rain in Serbia, ancient Egypt, and Kansas City. Indiana had a brown worm rain, and Massachusetts, the one with scarlet worms. There's also been a red worm rain over Sweden and a snail rain over England. There was even a shower of raw meat over Kentucky recently. And to make things really weird, eel rain was reported over Alabama and snakes fell from the sky over Tennessee. And the list goes on and on. At this point, you could pick your favorite creature and it has probably fallen from the sky somewhere at some point. But how come these bizarre and quite frankly terrifying events happen? Well, the reason is quite simple. Sometimes, when a storm's taking place, a vortex can form and carry upwards whatever unlucky creature had the misfortune of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And if that vortex transforms into a respectable tornado, then it isn't crazy to think that the animals could become airborne and transported some other place where they simply just start falling from the sky like in a horror movie. The elusive morning glory clouds. Imagine a giant snake made out of clouds crossing the sky. That is exactly what the morning glory clouds look like. The only place in the world where they are a recurrent occurrence is the Gulf of Carpentaria in northern Australia, and they appear mostly during September and October. It isn't the only place on Earth where they occur, but it is the only place where they can be forecast, so you know when to go to catch one. They're one of the most spectacular cloud formations known to mankind. The giant serpent in the sky can roll onto itself, and it stretches as far as the eye can see, sometimes for hundreds of kilometers. And they're quite fast as well. Moving at 35 kilometers per hour towards you, it can be a little intimidating. And sometimes there can be multiple cylindrical waves at once. They become a famous destination for pilots that want to surf the wave in the sky. Photographers also travel to Carpentaria every year to capture the absolute beauty of the morning glory clouds. The stunning frost flowers in the Arctic Ocean. Frost flowers are basically ice crystals that form in the extremely cold air above the ocean surface. Although they are not rare in the Arctic, they are nonetheless absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. They need a very specific set of conditions in order to form. The temperature has to be at exactly -7.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and the winds need to be very calm and gentle. Otherwise, the flowers would blow away immediately. The lifespan of a frost flower is, on average, 2 weeks. When you stumble into a cluster of frost flowers, it's like stepping into a field sown with white dandelions. Only in the Arctic, the ground is pure ice, and so are the flowers. They look like 1,000 shiny little vessels roaming the ice-cold ocean. Scientists praise frost flowers because, unlike any others like them in other parts of the world, these ones actually contain very high levels of salt and bacteria. That is because the Arctic blossoms have the ability to suck up seawater and basically keep the salt, and therefore they have 3 times the salinity than the ocean underneath them. I don't know about you, but I didn't know about any of these strange weather phenomena. Have you ever witnessed any of the occurrences on this list? If you haven't, which one would you like to? Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on screen right now. See you next time.